Guys, welcome back. Welcome back. Ooh, mute.
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody. Um, Thank you for coming back. We're on day August 31st, and we're going to continue with the cross examination of Suzette Mayweather, and then we're going to start the interview with Faith. Please, those who are, I really need a male. If anybody a male that want to take a part of Canic, if you would like to, please click this link and come on in and help us out, my brother, whichever one want to help, and I'll send you the
I
okay.
messaged CEO.
Inbox me behind the scene, ma'am. Okay, we got this here. All right. I think we got everybody. And any male that wants to be Canic, please hit the link, and then I'll send you the transcript. All right, my good people. We're getting ready to get started. Let me just start sharing this link here, and then we are good to go. We are good to go. All right. This is August 31st, and we're going to start with the trial for Robert Sylvester Kelly. All right. Let's get started.
All rise.
Everybody can have a seat. All right. I know there are a couple of outstanding motions in limine. I keep telling you nothing makes me happier than to get something out 10 o'clock at night with the latest issues. I am only kidding, obviously, but I do not think we need to address them at the moment. So we will do that at break because I would like to get the show on the road. Unless, do you need? I know you submitted something with regard to an investigator. Can that wait?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, great. All right, so let's get the witness.
Melendez.
Cruz.
You want me to put?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Who's doing Melendez?
Shh.
And also, Your Honor, I think I inflated the runtime yesterday with respect to this witness.
Excellent news.
So I think it would be about an hour, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
But I'm trying to scale it back.
All right. I think we can get the jury. Oh, you want to switch out the mic? Yes. And then we can get the jury whenever you are ready.
Okay, Judge.
Thanks.
All rise. You may be seated.
All right, jurors, good morning. We are ready to continue with the direct examination of the witness. Go ahead, Ms. Cruz Melendez.
The witness is reminded she's still under oath.
Yes.
Good morning, Miss Mayweather.
Good morning.
I think, look there. The only thing that I'm just going to remind you is just speak into the microphone, okay?
Yes.
Well, try it now. Just tap on it. See if it works. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
So much better. Okay, go ahead.
Miss Mayweather, you began your testimony yesterday, correct?
Yes.
And prior to beginning your testimony, did you receive a subpoena to testify here today?
Yes.
Do you want to be here testifying?
No, not at all.
Now, before we broke for the evening yesterday, you were testifying about some discussions you had with the defendant about Jane. Do you recall testifying about that?
Yes.
And you had testified about the fact that at some point shortly after meeting Jane, you asked the defendant who she was and why she was there. Do you recall testifying about that?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall where you were when you asked the defendant who Jane was and why she was with him?
Yes. And at that time, I remember we were on the Sprinter. I do not remember exactly where we were, but it was somewhere between DC and Baltimore.
And that's in September 2015 that you testified about yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Why did you ask the defendant who Jane was and why was she with him?
Objection, objection.
Overruled. Overruled.
You can answer.
I was just curious as, to who she was because, the introduction and just curious as to know who she was and why she was traveling with him.
And why were you curious?
A young lady traveling with him
How did Jane appear to you when you met him during that trip?
in terms of
Age.
she looked young.
So I want to direct your attention to November 4th of 2015. Do you recall where you were on that day?
No.
I'm showing the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 248 for identification purposes. Does that refresh your recollection as to where you were on November 4th, 2015?
Yes.
Do you recall being in the studio with Jane and the defendant on that date?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jurors what you recall?
Well, we were in Los Angeles for no, I'm sorry, Las Vegas for Soul Train Awards, and he was in the studio working on some music.
When you say he, who do you mean?
Sorry, Rob.
The defendant?
Yes, he was in the studio working on some music, and Jane and myself, we were in a room waiting area, and he came in and he was talking with us.
The defendant?
Yes, and I can't really. I know he wanted her to practice because he did have her practicing singing and all. And I know he left out of the room and she did not practice.
And what happened next?
So he came in and asked her if she was practicing and she said yes.
And what happened next?
And I remember him leaving out again, coming back again and asking her again. She said yes.
And can you explain to the jurors what happened after that?
Well, he was upset because he knew she was lying. And she did lie. And so he was upset by the fact of her lying and he wanted to just talk to her alone. And at that time, when the defendant had confronted Jane, were you present? Yes.
And what was his demeanor?
He was just upset with her for lying.
And what happened next?
So I could tell that he was upset. So I asked, could I leave to go to the restroom?
Why did you ask to leave to go to the restroom?
Well, I just wanted to give them time, give them their privacy because he was going to have a conversation with her and I didn't want to be present.
So you didn't have to go to the restroom.
I had to go to the restroom, but at that time, I wanted to go to the restroom.
And what, if anything, do you recall happened next?
They were in another room having a conversation. I was sitting out in the lobby area, and I know that he was, you know, getting onto her for lying.
What do you mean by that?
He was fussing at her.
If you could just explain to the jury what you mean by fussing at her.
You could say chastising her. He was.
Was his voice loud?
Not, no, it wasn't that his voice was elevated, but he was just chastising her for lying to him and for not doing what he asked her to do.
And what, if anything, do you recall happening next?
Then it sounded like he hit her, like with an open hand. It sounded like he did anyway.
So to you, you heard a sound that sounded as if he had hit her?
Yes,
And I say, you say her, you mean Jane.
yes.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Now, based on your friendship with the defendant, as well as your work with the defendant as an assistant, did you have an opportunity to see and meet the defendant's girlfriends?
Yes,
I'm going to show the witness government exhibit 52A, B, and C, which are currently in evidence. Your Honor, I'm going to actually show the witness government exhibit 52B.
For identification or in evidence?
Which is in evidence, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you recognize that photograph?
yes,
And without saying that individual's name, do you know who that individual is?
yes,
And do you know that individual's full name?
yes,
Does that individual have a nickname?
yes.
What is that individual's nickname?
Juice.
I'm showing just the witness government exhibit 52C, which is in evidence.
You want the witness and the jury?
Just the jury and the witness, Your Honor. Is the name is that the same photograph that I showed you just a moment ago?
Yes,
And is that the name that you know this individual by?
yes,
I'm showing the witness government exhibit 69 and 69A, which are in evidence. So 69 can be published to everyone. Do you recognize the individual in that photograph?
yes,
And have you met that person?
yes,
And going back for just a moment with respect to, 52B, sorry, this individual, have you met this person before?
yes.
And what, if any, relationship did this individual in 52B have to the defendant?
She was a live-in with him. As far as girlfriend, I didn't consider Juice to be a girlfriend. I considered her to be Rob's really good friend.
Did you see the individual in 52B traveling with the defendant?
Yes,
And did you see the individual in 52B who you referred to as Juice in the defendant's studios?
yes,
Now, going back to government exhibit 69, do you recognize that individual?
yes,
Have you met that individual in person?
yes,
Do you know that individual's full name?
yes.
Without saying the individual's last name, what is this individual's first name?
Dominique.
I'm showing just the witness and the jury what's in evidence as government's exhibit 69A. Is that the same photograph that I showed you in government exhibit 69?
Yes,
And is the name written below the name that you know Dominique as, the full name? first and last?
Yes.
And what, if any, relationship did Dominique have with the defendant?
I would say girlfriend.
I'm showing the witness and the public, in fact, Government Exhibit 72, which is in evidence. Do you recognize the individual in Government Exhibit 72?
Yes.
And have you met that individual before?
Yes.
Do you know this individual's full name?
Yes.
Does the individual in 702 have a nickname?
Yes.
Do you know what that individual's nickname is?
Yes.
What is that nickname?
V.
And I'm sorry, I may have asked you this already. Have you met the individual? Have you met V before? Yes. And what, if any, relationship did V have with the defendant? And what, if any, relationship did V have with the defendant? I would say girlfriend. I'm showing just the witness what has been marked as exhibit for identification purposes as Government's Exhibit 72A. You testified with respect to 72 being an individual whose nickname was V.
Yes.
And I believe you testified that you knew that individual's full name, correct?
Yes.
I'm showing the witness 72A. Is that the same photograph that's in 72?
A. Oh, yes.
And listed below that photograph, is that the individual's last name that you know V by?
Yes.
Your Honor, the government offers Exhibit 72A into evidence.
No objection.
All right. That is in evidence.
If we could just publish to the jury, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 76. And this can be published to the public imagery as well. Do you recognize the individual in Government Exhibit 76?
Yes.
And do you know this individual's name?
Yes.
What, if any, relationship did the individual in Government Exhibit 76 have with the defendant?
I would say girlfriend.
And I'm showing the witness and the public and the jury Government Exhibit 78. Do you recognize the individual in Government Exhibit 78?
Yes.
And have you met this individual before?
Yes.
And what, if any, relationship did this individual have with the defendant?
I would say girlfriend.
And do you know this individual's first name?
Yes.
What's her first name?
Joycelyn.
Now, based on your observations and your work for the defendant, did the individuals whose photographs I just showed you, which included Juice, V, Dominique, the individual listed in Government Exhibit 78, and the other photographs that we just discussed, did you see these women travel with the defendant?
Yes.
And did you also see these women with the defendant at his home?
Yes.
And did you also see these women with the defendant at his studios?
Studio. Yes. Let me just say, in terms of home, I would consider home to be the Trump Tower. The only females that I knew to be at the Trump Tower was his fiance or girlfriend. That was his main girlfriend, was Summer. And then later I knew that Jane and Joycelyn.
Were with the defendant at his home?
Yes.
At the Trump Tower, right?
Yes. The others, no.
They were with the defendant at his studio.
Yes.
Now, during the course of your work and friendship with the defendant, did you have an opportunity to observe the defendant with his girlfriends
Yes.
and with Juice as well?
Yes.
Based on your experience with the defendant and your work with the defendant, did you have an opportunity to observe Juice and his girlfriends, even when the defendant wasn't around?
Yes.
And so, based on your time spent with the defendant and his girlfriends, what, if any, rules did, did the defendant have with respect to his girlfriend?
I would say they were not at liberty if we were in the studio or, they were not at liberty to move around without asking him first.
When you say him, who do you mean?
I'm sorry, Rob.
The defendant?
Yes.
Any other rules with respect to interaction, with respect to your observations of the defendant's girlfriends and Juice?
Well, anytime they wanted to go somewhere or do anything, they had to ask him.
And when you say him, who do you mean?
Rob.
What, if any, observations did you make with respect to Juice or the defendant's girlfriends that you discussed interaction with other men? What, if any, observations did you make about that?
Well, they did not interact with other men.
And at whose direction was that?
Rob's.
The defendant's?
Yes.
How did Juice and the defendant's girlfriends refer to the defendant?
As daddy.
What, if any, observations did you make with respect to how Juice and his girlfriends and the defendant's girlfriends dressed?
Warm up pants, t-shirts.
And at whose direction did they dress that way?
Rob's.
The defendant?
Yes.
Now, you previously testified that one of the defendant's rules with regard to Juice and his girlfriends was not interacting with other men. Do you recall testifying about that?
Yes.
And what do you mean by that?
They didn't talk to other men and they could not look at other men.
Did you ever go out in public with Juice and the other women who you described as the defendant's girlfriends?
Yes.
And at what places would you go out in public with them?
We've been to the malls, nail shops, spas.
Now, when you were working for the defendant, if you were out in public with Juice and the defendant's girlfriends, what do you understand your role to be if one of them needed to interact with a man other than the defendant?
Well, if there was a man present and they needed to be in the presence of that male, I interacted with the male.
And how do you know that was your role?
I just knew. I knew because they could not, and because they could not. And then I knew because Juice would say something.
And when you say you knew that they could not, is that because of the rules you testified that were implemented by Rob,
Yes.
the defendant?
Yes.
You also testified that as part of the defendant's rules, his girlfriends and Juice needed his permission to go anywhere or do anything. Do you recall testifying about that?
Yes.
What types of things did the defendant's girlfriend seek permission from the defendant before doing?
Moving freely, moving around the studio.
And what about moving freely, as you say, to use your word, when they were not in the studio?
They would have to get his permission because they did not move unless they got his permission.
And when you say his, are you referring to the defendant?
Yes.
If, for example, one of the defendant's girlfriends or Juice needed to go to the bathroom, what, if any, observations did you make about that? If they were in a location where there was no bathroom and they needed to use the bathroom, what, if any, observations did you make about what Juice or his girlfriends had to do?
They would ask him.
When you say him, who do you mean?
Rob.
And what if, did you ever receive requests from the defendant's girlfriends if they couldn't reach Rob to request to go to the bathroom?
Not requesting to go to the bathroom, but requesting for me to call him or text him to get with him because they needed, to do something.
And when you say him, do you mean the defendant?
Yes, Rob.
And when the defendant's girlfriend and Juice ask you to get in touch with Rob to say, for example, go to the bathroom, did you in fact do that?
Yes.
And would the defendant respond to you about whether or not they could go to the bathroom?
He would respond to me either directly or he would just respond to them. He would either call them or get with them.
What if, for example, one of the defendant's girlfriends or Juice needed to get food? Is that based on your observations working for the defendant and interacting with the defendant's girlfriends and Juice? What, if anything, would they need to do before they could get food?
Well, if they were with him, they would ask him. But if they could not get in contact with him, they would text me to tell him that they want to get food.
Okay, and if they got in contact with you, what, if anything, would you do in response to getting? What in response to get to them getting in contact with you? And if they got in contact with you, what, if anything, would you do in response to them getting in contact with you?
She got kicked off again. Just one moment. Here she is. He's back.
All right.
Okay. And if they got in contact with you, what, if anything, would you do in response to them getting in contact with you?
I would getting into, can you repeat that, please?
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
You previously testified that if they had a request and you couldn't reach the defendant,
Right.
that they would ask you to reach the defendant.
Right.
Did you similarly do that with requests for example, getting food?
Yes.
So we've been talking about a number of rules that you observed and the defendant had with respect to the defendant's girlfriends
Yes.
and Juice as well.
Yes.
At some point, did you learn that Jane was also one of the defendant's girlfriends?
Yes.
And prior to you learning whether Jane was one of the defendant's girlfriends, did you observe Jane also following the same rules we've been discussing with respect to the defendant's girlfriends?
Yes.
Now, during your time being friends with the defendant and also working for the defendant, did you ever go to the defendant's studios?
Yes.
Which studios did you go to?
Well, before working with him, I went to a studio. I was downtown, the chocolate factory. And after working with him, I guess it's still a chocolate factory, but it was the main studio.
Do you recall the address of the studio that you're referring to as the chocolate factory?
The main studio, once I worked for him, was 219 North Justine.
I'm showing you what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 503A. Do you recognize 503A?
Yes.
And what is that?
The studio on Justine, North Justine.
I'm showing just the witness what's been marked for identification purposes as Government Exhibit 503B. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 503B for identification purposes?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's the front door entrance to the studio.
The studio at 219 Justin Street?
Justine, yes.
Justine Street. I'm showing just the witness Government Exhibit 503C. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 503C?
Looks like the side entrance to the studio.
219 Justine Street.
219 Justine.
Showing just the witness 503D.
That's the back door to the studio at 219 North Justine.
And finally, 503E. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the back door to 219 North Justine.
And 219 North Justine Street. Where is that located?
It's in Chicago. I'm not really familiar with besides.
Your Honor, at this time, the government exhibit would like to offer government exhibits 503B, C, D, and E.
Any objection?
No objection. Oh, sorry.
All right. Those are in evidence.
And if I could just publish to the jury and the public, please. So we started with the government exhibits 503A. You said that was the front door of the studio at 219 North Justine Street, correct?
Yes.
And the government exhibit 503B, the front entrance to 219 Justine Street.
Yes.
And 503C, you testified about, was a backside door view of 219 Justine Street.
Yes.
And this is 503D, the back door, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you were at the defendant's studio at 219 Justine Street, were there times where the defendant's girlfriends, Juice and Jane, were also present?
Yes.
Did any of them stay at 219 Justine Street for long periods of time?
We all did. Yes.
Were there time periods in which you slept over at 219 Justine Street?
Yes.
And based on what you observed at 219 Justine Street, were Juice and the defendant's girlfriends, including Jane, free to move around the studio?
If they were in the open area between the sitting room and the kitchen, yes.
What if they were not in that area but were in a particular room in the studio, 219 North Justine Street?
No.
And so what, if any, protocol was in place based on the defendant's rules if they wanted to leave the room?
They had to ask him.
When you say him, who do you mean?
Rob.
And did you understand that also to be the protocol that Jane needed to follow if she wanted to leave the room where she was staying at 219 Justine Street?
Yes.
Now, generally speaking, where did Jane stay in the studio at 219 Justine Street?
There was a room in the back off from the kitchen area, and she would spend most of her time there.
And when you say in the back kitchen area, was that a separate room?
Yes.
I'm showing just the witness what's been marked for identification purposes as Government Exhibit 236. Do you recognize what's in Government Exhibit 236?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's the room.
Is that the room where Jane stayed?
Yes.
And did you provide that photograph to the government?
Yes.
Your Honor, the government moves to admit Government Exhibit 236.
No objection.
Okay. That is in evidence. You can publish.
Now, were there, based on your observations, were there ever periods of time where Jane spent long periods of time in this room?
Yes.
How long might Jane stay for long periods of time in that room in Government Exhibit 236?
It could be a day because
Let me ask you.
I want to be clear. Your Honor, I'm going to have to ask she be allowed to finish her answer.
Well, let's put another question to the witness.
Were there periods of time in which Jane stayed in that room for more than a day?
I could think that it was more than a day, but I don't know.
Based on your observations, were there periods of time in which you did not see Jane come out of the room in 219 North Justine Street?
Yes.
And at whose direction was Jane staying in that room in 219 North Justine Street?
Objection.
Overruled. If you know, why did she stay in there?
Well, if she had to stay in the room, it was at Rob's direction.
The defendants?
Yes.
Can we just assume whenever you are talking about Rob, you are talking about the defendants?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you recall particular incidents in which Jane had to remain in that room at Rob's direction?
Yes.
And what, if any, incident do you recall where Jane was directed by the defendant to stay in that room?
Well, there was an incident where we were getting ready to go out of state for a show, and we were getting ready to leave. Rob told me that he was leaving her behind because she was behind on her schoolwork.
And when you say leaving her behind, what do you mean?
Like at the studio.
And what, if anything, did Rob ask you to do with respect to Jane staying behind at the studio?
Well, he asked me to stay behind too. And once she was finished with all of her schoolwork, then he would fly us out to the next city.
How long was Jane in the studio?
So we were probably there. So the initial direction was late night. It was late night. So I know she was there through that night and all day the next day. And then the following morning, we left. But I want to be clear, she was back there in the room. But I do know she moved around outside of that room.
Do you recall other instances in which Jane was at that room in 219 Justine Street
Yes,
for long periods of time?
yes.
I want to direct. Do you recall every instance in which that occurred?
Well, whenever. Okay, so again, there's.
I just want to be clear. So you're answering the question that I asked you.
Okay,
Do you recall every single instance when that happened?
no.
It happened on multiple occasions, though.
Objection.
Overruled.
Did it happen on multiple occasions?
That she was in the room? Yes,
At the defendant's direction?
yes,
Now, during the period that you were working for the defendant, did you have a phone?
yes,
And did you send text messages on that phone?
yes.
And who, if anyone, did you often text when you were working for the defendant?
My sister, Alizette, and Cash.
And when you text with Cash, first and foremost, who is Cash again?
Stylist.
Rob Stylist, the defendant stylist.
Yes,
And when you text with your sister and with Cash, were you texting about observations that you made?
yes,
And observations that you made during the time that you were working with the defendant?
yes.
When you were texting with respect to observations that you were making while you were working with the defendant, were you accurate in those text messages?
I believe. Yes,
And were you texting based on your own personal observations?
yes.
Your Honor, the government would like to show the witness Government Exhibit 240B for identification purposes.
Okay.
Do you recognize Government Exhibit 24B?
Yes.
And is this a text message between? Who is this a text message between?
My sister.
Do you recall the specific incident with respect to the statements that you were making in Government Exhibit 240B?
Reading it, yes.
And what, if anything, happened? Well, first and foremost, what was the date that this incident occurred?
December 10th, 2015.
And what, if anything, do you recall happening on that date?
I don't recall what happened on that day. I just from reading the text messages.
Do you recall those sending these text messages to your sister, Alicette?
I do now, yes.
And as we were talking about before, when you sent text messages to your sister, were you trying to be accurate?
Yes,
And was it based on your observations at that time?
yes,
And close in time to those observations,
yes.
Your Honor, the government moves Government Exhibit 24B into evidence as a recollection record.
No objection.
Okay, that is in evidence.
Before publishing, I would like to show just the witness Government Exhibit 956. Do you see that there?
Yes.
And what is that?
My cell phone.
And is that the cell phone that you use to, is that the cell phone number that you use to communicate with your sister?
Yes.
Your Honor, the government moves to admit Exhibit 956.
No objection.
Okay, that is in evidence. Is that jury only?
That is for the jury only, Your Honor. Thank you. Your Honor,
Your Honor.
permission to publish Government Exhibit 240B.
Okay.
And this is for the jury and the public. So looking at Government Exhibit 240B, where it says outgoing here, is that, who is texting in that first line?
I'm not sure because I don't know how to read this document. Outgoing would be from me, right?
Well, take a look. Let's read through it. Take a look and then.
Okay.
So the outgoing message says, where is she? Where are you? Incoming says, she's in the back room. I'm still in the front. During this incident, were you present with the defendant, Jane?
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. These text messages came from my number, right? Okay. So that would be outgoing. So yes, yes.
So just for a moment, if you could just show the witness. Do you have your phone number here?
Yes, yes.
An outgoing message is from your sister, correct?
So outgoing? Yes.
And so incoming would be from you, correct?
Okay. Yes.
All right. So starting with outgoing.
Okay.
And now if we could just publish to everyone, Your Honor.
Sure.
Starting with outgoing, it says, where is she? Where are you?
Yes.
And then it says, incoming. She's in the back room. I'm still in the front. Do you see that there?
Yes.
And then it says, outgoing. So he's had her in there all day. Has she come out to use the restroom or eat? Outgoing again. Where's R? Where is Nisi? Stopping here at this line. Where's R? Where is Nisi? What does R indicate in this text?
Rob.
And Nisi?
Jane.
That's a reference to Jane.
Yes.
And you previously testified that you referred to Jane as niece.
Yes.
And then continuing to go, it says incoming. She came out to go to the restroom and eat. They are still in the room next to the studio. Outgoing, there is furniture in there now. Outgoing, why is he holding her there? Incoming, I don't know.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that based on your review of this text, that this is an incident in which Jane was in that back room in the studio for a period of time?
She was in the back room. Yes. I'm sorry. What was the exhibit number?
240B. Now, during this time spent with the defendant, either as his friend or as his assistant, did you ever have occasions to ride in the elevator with the defendant's girlfriends?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you notice riding in the elevator with them?
When he walked in the elevator, once the door closed, they faced the wall.
Face the wall of the elevator?
Of the elevator. They just never turned around.
And which of his girlfriends did you see doing this?
All of them.
Including Jane?
Yes.
During the time that you spent with the defendant, again, either as his friend or his assistant, did you ever have occasion to watch the defendant play basketball?
Yes.
And when you went to watch the defendant play basketball, were any of his girlfriends present?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you notice about his girlfriends at these basketball games?
Well, we all sat together. Everyone sat together. And they would cheer for him.
And when you say him, who do you mean?
They would only cheer for Rob.
You testified previously that the defendant's girlfriends needed to get permission from him before going to the bathroom. Were you ever present for an occasion in which one of the defendant's girlfriends failed to get permission before going to the bathroom?
Yes.
And on these occasions, did you ever have conversations with the defendant about incidents in which the defendant's girlfriends failed to get his permission prior to going to the bathroom?
Once.
So I want to discuss the time in which, well, let me ask you this question. Did that ever occur with respect to his girlfriend, Jocelyn?
Yes.
So I want to discuss the incident with respect to Jocelyn.
Okay.
Do you recall where you were when Jocelyn didn't get the defendant's permission to go to the bathroom?
City? No. We were at a truck stop, but I don't recall the city.
And when you say you were at the truck stop, do you recall why you were at the truck stop?
We made occasional stops for restroom breaks and food.
Okay. So were you traveling on the road?
Yes.
And generally speaking, who were you traveling with?
Rob?
And why were you traveling?
It had to be a show.
And it's fair to say, based on your testimony, that Jocelyn was present.
Yes.
And so please explain to the jurors what happened.
She was riding in the Sprinter with me, and we stopped. To, again, get food or restroom break. And when I got out, or either when I returned, she asked me, could she go to the bathroom? And I said yes. And I took her to show her where the bathroom was.
And what happened after you were done taking her to go to the restroom?
He called me.
Who is he?
Rob.
And what, if anything, did he say?
He asked me, why did I take her off the Sprinter?
Why did you take Joy off the Sprinter?
Why did I take Joy off the sprinter?
And what, if anything, did you say in response?
I told him because she had to use the restroom.
And what, if anything, did the defendant say in response?
He had told me not to take any of his guests off the sprinter without his permission or his knowledge.
And when he said guess, who did you understand him to be talking about?
Joy.
What, if any, action did the defendant take with respect to you on that date when he confronted you about letting Joy off the bus, off the sprinter, of the sprinter?
I don't recall any actions that day.
Did the defendant confront you on other occasions regarding your failure to follow instructions as to rules he had with respect to his girlfriends?
Will you rephrase that question?
Were there ever other times, in addition to the time you just testified here today, about where the defendant confronted you because he thought that you had allowed one of his girlfriends to break one of his rules?
Not break a rule. I would not say break a rule, but maybe it was something that he wanted to do and I didn't do it. Then, yes, there was a confrontation.
Something that one of the defendant's girlfriends wanted to do, correct?
Yes.
That you let them do.
Or not.
Or not. Without getting to the defendant's authorization.
Yes.
I'm showing the witness government 69. This can be published as well. Who is this again in government's exhibit 69?
Dominique.
At some point, did the defendant confront you regarding actions that you had taken relating to Dominique?
Yes.
Where were you when the defendant confronted you about Dominique?
At the studio.
Prior to, which studio is that?
219 North Justine.
Prior to being in the studio with the defendant, where were you?
At the hotel, at my hotel room.
What, if anything, happened while you were at the hotel room?
I called Rob to let him know that I would be leaving on the flight the next morning because it was leading into my days off.
What, if anything, happened when you called the defendant?
He didn't answer.
What happened next?
So he called me back later.
What happened when he called you?
So when he called me back, we talked about the fact that I would be leaving. And it's probably about 1 or 2 in the morning. And he told me that he needed me too. Before leaving, he needed me to get up and bring him a sweet potato pie.
What, if anything, did you do in response to the defendant's request?
I said, okay.
What did you do next?
So once I hung up from him, I was trying to figure out, it's 1 or 2 in the morning. Where will I find a sweet potato pie?
What did you do?
Well, I remember Patty LaBelle's sweet potato pie. So I Googled a 24-hour Walmart. I called the Walmart. I asked if they had a Patty LaBelle sweet potato pies in stock. They did. So I took an Uber to the Walmart.
What did you do once you got to the Walmart?
I bought all of the Patty LaBelle sweet potato pies.
After you purchased the pies, what did you do?
I Ubered to the studio.
What happened when you got to the studio?
Well, when I got to the studio, his Uncle George let me in the studio. As I walked in, I said to him, "You thought I was going to fail your test."
Who did you say this to?
Rob.
What happened next?
He said, "Damn, twin." Then I instructed him on how to warm the pies, and he told me to go put them in the refrigerator.
What happened next?
So when I came out, I told him that we just talked. And then because I was going to leave to go back to the hotel to prepare to leave for home.
And what happened next?
So he wanted to talk to me regarding Dominique. And he asked me, did I purchase Dominique a cell phone?
When the defendant asked you whether or not you purchased Dominique a cell phone, what was his demeanor?
He was calm.
What, if anything, did you say in response to when the defendant asked you about buying Dominique a cell phone?
I told him no, I did not.
Had you in fact bought Dominique a cell phone?
No,
Who bought Dominique a cell phone?
my sister.
Why did your sister buy Dominique a phone?
Objection.
Overruled. Were you there when she purchased the phone?
No,
All right, sustained.
What, if anything, did you say in response to the defendant's question about the fact that you bought Dominique a phone?
I did not buy Dominique a phone.
What did you say to the defendant?
I said my sister did. Let me backtrack. Because I said, no, I did not. And he said that I did. And I did not. And so he said, Dominique said that Twin, which could be either one of us, Twin bought me the phone.
Now, when the defendant was asking you about buying Dominique a phone, what, if any, impression did you have about the defendant's questions about asking you about buying Dominique a phone?
Objection.
Sustained.
When the defendant asked you whether you had bought Dominique a phone, who was with you?
I was alone, but George was in the room as well.
And can you remind the jurors who George is?
Rob's uncle and an assistant as well.
Does he have a nickname?
Yes,
What is his nickname?
Junebug.
So what happened after you said to the defendant that you hadn't bought Dominique a phone?
Well, when he said that she said that I did, I told him I was going to call my sister and ask her if she did.
Did you call your sister?
I did.
And while you were calling your sister, what, if anything, did the defendant say to you about that?
He didn't want me to call her.
What happened next?
I still called her. And when she answered, I don't recall if I had it on speakerphone. I may have. And I asked her, I said, I'm here with Rob, and he's accusing me of buying Dominique a phone. Did you buy Dominique's phone? And she said yes.
What, if anything, happened next?
She said, yes, she bought Dominique a phone. She said she bought the phone because Dominique said she needed to call her mother.
And what, if anything, did the defendant say next?
To that point, nothing.
Did you continue discussing anything with the defendant at that time?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you discuss?
He asked me, had I been talking about him or discussing him with Dominique?
And did you, when he asked you that question, did you know what he was referring to? In terms of the topic?
No, not the topic, no.
So what, if anything, did the defendant say next?
He asked me when Dominique and I left New Orleans, did I take Dominique off the tour bus to get food?
And when he asked you about that, did you know what he was referring to?
Yes.
So you testified about New Orleans with Dominique. You recall being in New Orleans with Dominique?
Yes.
Why were you in New Orleans with Dominique?
It had to be for a show.
When you were with Dominique, who else was there?
On the tour bus?
Yes.
Myself and the driver.
And who was the driver at that time?
Top Gun. Excuse me, Top Gun.
What is Top Gun's real name?
Foster.
Why were you with Top Gun and Dominique on the tour bus?
We were in New Orleans, and I don't know why we were. I don't know what happened.
Where were you going? Sorry to interrupt you. I want to make my question a little more clear. Where were you going with Dominique on the tour bus?
To the airport.
Go where?
Back to Chicago.
What happened while you were on the bus with Dominique?
She wanted to get something to eat.
And what happened next?
So I asked the driver to stop for food.
Did you stop?
Yes.
And what happened after you stopped?
When we stopped to get food, she asked me could she get off the bus.
Did she get off the bus?
Yes.
Prior to getting off the bus, based on your observations, did she seek permission from the defendant?
No.
Going back to the incident where you were at the studio with the defendant and he was asking you about letting Dominique off the bus,
Yes.
how much time approximately passed between that incident where you were in New Orleans with Dominique and when the defendant was talking to you about letting Dominique off the bus?
I really don't recall. Maybe a couple of months.
So going back to that conversation where the defendant asked you whether or not you had let Dominique off the bus, what did you say in response?
I lied. I said no.
Why did you lie?
I lied because at that point I knew that she should not have been off the bus.
Why did you know she should not have been off the bus?
I know that they have to ask him if they can move around and get off the bus. So I knew that when he asked me, did I let her off the bus, that I had to say no.
When you say he and him in those sentences, are you referring to the defendant?
Yes.
After you denied having let her off the bus, what, if anything, did the defendant do?
Well, he questioned me again. Again, I denied it. So he said, if I call Top Gun and I ask him, he's going to tell me you did not take her off the bus. And I said, yes.
What happened next?
He called Top Gun.
And did Top Gun answer?
No.
What, if anything, happened next during that conversation?
So then he asked me again about having a discussion about him or talking about him to Dominique.
What did he say?
He asked me if I had talked about him, and I told him no.
Now, had you previously been speaking with Dominique about the defendant?
Yes,
Who initiated that conversation?
she did. Dominique did.
Was Dominique present for any of the conversation where the defendant was asking you questions about Dominique?
At this point, she was not. But then once I told him I did not talk about him with Dominique, then he called Juice to bring her down.
Did Dominique come down?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the defendant say about what he believed you had been speaking to Dominique about?
I don't know if she told him, but he was saying that. Just talking about their relationship in general, talking about the fact that she wanted to be a writer and how that was going. He thought we had a conversation about that and about his children, a conversation about his children at a show in Atlanta, and just things that were taking place in a relationship.
Based on your experience, were these things Dominique was supposed to be talking about to you?
No,
Why was that?
because I knew, and I know that they knew that we just didn't talk about Raul's relationship.
Why not?
I guess he wanted that objection.
Do you know why?
I do not know why, but
You don't? Okay, next question.
Going back to that night when the defendant brought Dominique downstairs and was asking you about these personal questions. Once Dominique was downstairs, what, if anything, did you say in
going
response
back to that night when the
to the
defendant
defendant?
brought Dominique downstairs and was asking about these personal questions, once Dominique was downstairs, what, if anything, did you say in response to the defendant? Well, I made it known that I was not the initiator of any conversation regarding him and Dominique.
What, if anything, did the defendant say?
What, if anything, did the defendant say? He didn't believe me. What happened next? I know that he did become angry. He was very upset about it. What happened next? Okay, so this particular incident was the first time ever? I'm sorry. It's okay. It was the first time that I had ever seen Rob really upset. I had never seen him this upset. And when I say upset, it wasn't the tone, it was the look in his eyes. Because I knew that he was upset that Dominique and I had ever had any type of conversation, or that I was even insinuating that she had a conversation with me. So I told him that I initiated the conversation.
Was that true?
Was that true?
Was that true?
No. Why did you tell him that? It was you. Because I feared for her in terms of what the repercussions would be with
Okay,
us
she
having a
can't hear
conversation.
everybody, y'all. She
Because I
can't
had never seen
hold
him
on.
like that before.
I'm
After the
sorry.
government raised the
Hold on, y'all.
issue with
She
respect
keeps
to
going.
your
Hold on, let me kick her off. Hold on.
Okay.
I apologize, everybody.
What's going on?
I'm so sorry, y'all. Hold on, I'm gonna let them come back. Denver, so Cindy, I'm lost. Hold on, y'all.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. She was just going and going. The other
She's
one
just
trying to
going.
come in. Oh God! Did you hear her?
It is
Yeah.
not the
You know, you was reading her both part, and she was trying to come in and say something, and
and I was
you
giving
You
her
was just going
a
on.
break. I apologize.
she
I
was
was
trying to
giving
come. Hold on, I was waiting for her to come back. What happened to her? Everybody in the chat was like, "What's going on?"
look, I was pausing before each thing for her to jump in. You ain't notice it get like quiet,
Yeah, she
and
was
then
jumping in. She was jumping in, but
I totally
You kept
apologize.
repeating.
okay, I'm waiting
I
for her
know,
to come
right?
back in. I wonder what happened to her. Hold on, y'all.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta put the link in. She probably can't get the link. Hold on, let me put the link in so she can come in. I apologize, everybody.
Sorry, y'all. Sorry, ma'am. I apologize. I
Look,
was trying
Denver
to
said
give you.
she's reading both parts.
I apologize.
She was going, y'all. She was going in.
I was waiting for the judge lady to jump in or somebody because I didn't know that the other lady was back yet. Because I figured hers timed out like mine. So I was
it's
like,
it's Fig
Judge.
said she thought it was pre-recorded. There she come. Here she come. It wasn't you, Miss Cruz. It was her.
Oh,
I apologize.
You kicked yourself out to see if it was you, huh?
Yes. I was like, I'm talking, but they don't hear me. What's going on?
I heard you.
We
I was
heard
hearing
you.
you.
She didn't hear you.
I
Oh,
did.
okay. Let me
Okay,
see.
y'all, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Where are
That was
y'all?
a
I totally
commercial break,
apologize,
y'all.
ma'am.
What line are we on?
We can do what, 13?
Yeah, let's start with 13.
Okay.
13 on page, what page is that?
2034.
2034.
Okay.
2034.
Okay.
I
Okay.
totally apologize. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
All right, guys. Sorry. Back roller action.
Action. Okay. Why did you tell him that it was you?
Because I feared for her in terms of what the repercussions would be with us having a conversation. Because I had never seen him like that before.
After the defendant raised the issue with respect to your having personal conversations about his relationship with Dominique to you, what, if anything, did the defendant say next?
He asked me to never have a conversation with the girls regarding him.
Did he address any other issues with you on that evening?
Yes,
What, if anything else, did he address with you?
a text message. He asked that I send a text message to.
Without saying this individual's name, if you can refer to her as just the relationship to another individual. So, who did he ask you whether or not you sent a text to?
If I sent a text message to Juice's mother.
Had you sent a text message to Juice's mother?
Not intentionally.
What had you text Juice's mother, generally speaking?
I do not, yeah. I don't recall what it was because the text was not intended for her. I sent it to her instead of the person under her.
What was it about?
About him?
The defendant?
Yes.
Generally speaking, the tone of the text.
It was something in media, social media, something.
About the defendant?
Yes.
Something positive or negative?
It was negative. Objection.
Overruled.
It was negative, did you say?
Yes.
When the defendant raised this to you about the text to Juice's mother, what, if anything, did you say?
I told him I did not send the message to her.
Was that true?
No.
What happened next?
He tried to call Juice's mother.
Juice's mother tried to call?
Yes.
Juice's mother, you tried to call?
Yes.
Did she answer?
No.
What, if anything, happened next?
Well, he sent Dominique back upstairs, and we just had a conversation about not discussing him with his girlfriends or his guests.
You previously testified about the text that you had sent to Juice's mother. Do you know what, if any, did the defendant, based on your observations and experience, did he know Juice's mother?
Yes.
What, if any, relationship did they have?
I think friends, just really good friends.
Once the defendant told you not to have discussions with his girlfriends, what happened next?
He told me that he was going to have to find me.
What did that mean by finding you?
Doc pay.
Had the defendant ever fined you before this time?
Yes.
On approximately how many occasions did the defendant say he was going to find you?
I believe this was like the third time.
Do you recall any amounts that the defendant said he might fine you or he would fine you?
This particular time, no. I don't recall the amount.
On past occasions, do you recall the amounts that the defendant said that he would fine you?
I believe $500.
In addition to saying that the defendant would fine you, what, if anything, else did the defendant say?
He wanted me to write a letter of apology.
Did you write the letter?
Yes.
Where did you write the letter?
Right there in front of him.
Do you recall what you wrote?
Verbatim, no. But it was in regards to the incident. So I just
Do you
simply
recall
wrote
what you wrote?
verbatim, no, but it was in regards to this incident. So I just simply wrote, I apologize for having a conversation with your guest or Dominique, and I will never have a conversation with any of your guests.
Did you sign the letter?
Yes,
What did you do with the letter after you signed it?
I left it right there with him.
Did you ever have to write a letter similar to the letter that you had to write on the occasion, oh, sorry, that the defendant asked you questions about Dominique? Did you ever have to write a similar letters on other occasions?
I've had to write two other letters.
When was the first time the defendant asked you to write a letter of that type?
The first time, I don't remember if it was the first time in regards to Jane.
If you don't remember the exact order, let's talk about the letter with respect to Jane. Generally speaking, what are the circumstances under which you wrote this letter regarding Jane?
If it was anything that Rob felt you did and he didn't like and we had a disagreement about, then he would ask me to write a letter.
I want to direct your attention to May of 2015.
Okay.
During that time period, were you with the defendant, traveling with the defendant?
May of 2015?
May of 2015.
No.
Do you recall being in Jacksonville in May of 2015?
I don't recall. Wait. I'm sorry. Hold on. May 2015? No. May of 2016.
Sorry, May of 2016. That's my fault. May of 2016. Do you recall being in Jacksonville?
Yes.
Why were you in Jacksonville?
He had a show.
The defendant had a show?
Yes.
Was Jane present?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the defendant ask you to do with respect to Jane?
To drive her to her graduation rehearsal.
And did you drive her to her graduation rehearsal?
Yes.
And did you drive her to the graduation rehearsal?
Yes.
What graduation was that for?
High school.
Where did you drive her to?
I think it was Orlando or just right outside of Orlando.
Did Jane attend the graduation rehearsal?
Yes.
After the graduation rehearsal, did you and Jane stay overnight in Orlando?
No.
Where did you go?
After the graduation rehearsal, I took her to have dinner with her parents and her family.
And after that?
We drove back to Jacksonville.
Did you speak to the defendant after you arrived back in Jacksonville?
Yes.
What, if anything, did he say to you?
He confronted me about telling him that I would not let her listen to his music.
When you say his music, you mean the defendant's music?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the defendant say to you with respect to that?
He just said that Jane told him that she asked me to switch the station, and I told her no. But I told her okay, but wait.
when you first started testifying about this, we were talking about the instances in which you were asked by the defendant to write a letter of apology.
Yes.
Did the defendant ask you to write a letter of apology in this instance?
Yes.
Did you in fact write that letter?
Yes.
What did you write in that letter?
Centered around the incident, I apologize that I did not change the station for Jane when she requested.
Did you sign the letter?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you do with the letter?
That letter, because it was done at the venue, I gave that letter to one of the other employees to give to him.
Who was that? Do you recall who the other employee was?
Yes.
Who was it?
June Brown.
When you say to give it to him, you mean,
To Rob.
do you recall any other instances where you were asked to write a letter at the defendant's direction?
Yes.
What is the next instance that you recall?
We had a confrontation because I called him a liar.
Where were you when this happened?
I do not recall the city, but it was at one of the venues for the show, for his show.
What led you to having write a letter?
One of the, I believe, the security guys. I was going into his dressing room, and there was food set up outside of the dressing room area. I believe it was one of the security guys that asked me if I would pass them something, maybe a piece of chicken, and I did. And someone went and told him. So he confronted me, and we had words. And he said I lied, and I called him a liar.
What happened next?
Well, it was in front of Joycelyn. So when I called him a liar in front of Joycelyn, Joycelyn had said, So he didn't like that, and he told me I was fired.
What happened next?
I said, okay. I quit, and I left.
Where did you go after you left?
I believe I went back to the hotel.
When was this again? What year? Do you remember?
This had to be in 2016.
Okay.
After you went to the hotel, where did you go?
Well, I stayed at the hotel until after the show. Then I rode with the production team to the next city.
Where did you go after that?
I do not recall the city. I just remember flying out of that city.
At that time, did you stop working with the defendant after that?
Yes.
For how long?
About a day or two.
So when was the next time you saw the defendant?
In Chicago.
Where did you see the defendant?
At the studio.
Which studio was this?
219 North Justine.
Why did you go back to Chicago? Why did you go back to Chicago to be with the defendant?
His uncle George called me and just basically said Rob and I needed to have a talk and reconcile.
So what happened once you got to the studio?
He asked me to fly back to Chicago. When I got to the studio, I was sitting in the Sprinter. So George said, let me go in and tell him that you're here. I said, okay. He went in and came back out and said, Rob is going to want a letter of apology.
Did you in fact write a letter?
I said, okay, and I wrote the letter.
Did you sign the letter?
I did.
What did you write in the letter?
I apologize for calling him a liar.
What did you do with the letter once you finished writing it?
I gave it to George.
What, if anything, did George do with the letter once you gave it to him?
Well, I believe he gave it to Rob.
What happened next?
I know he came back out with the letter.
Who is he?
I'm sorry, George.
What happened once he came back out with the letter?
He said that I didn't sign it. That wasn't my signature.
What, if anything, did you do next?
I said that that is my signature, and I showed him my driver's license.
What happened after you showed George your driver's license?
He said, "Oh yeah, it sure is." He took it back in.
To where the defendant was?
Yes,
I want to direct your attention to January 4th, 2016. Do you recall attending a birthday gathering in January 26, 2016?
yes.
Where was that gathering?
At the studio.
Do you recall who was there?
Yes,
Was the defendant present?
yes.
Who else was there?
His girlfriends, V, Dominique, Juice, Juice's mother, Juice's family, and friends.
So I want to turn your attention to the following morning and afternoon after that gathering. Were you still at 219 North Justine Street?
Yes,
Was the defendant there as well?
yes.
Did the defendant say anything in the morning and afternoon after that party?
Yes. Objection. Did he say anything?
Overruled.
What, if anything, did the defendant say?
Later that afternoon, he and I left.
Prior to you leaving, did you see the defendant?
Yes,
This is before you leave 219 Justine Street. Where, if anywhere, did the defendant go?
he came through the studio and went upstairs.
Prior to going upstairs, what, if anything, did the defendant say?
He had a conversation with Juice's mother. I don't know what he said.
Did you say you don't know what he said?
Not at that time, no.
You learned at a later time.
Yes.
When the defendant went upstairs, what happened next?
When he went upstairs, I could hear females, his girlfriend, and it's like they were laughing. To me, it sounded, it could be laughing or screaming, bumping, thumping the floor.
At the time, did you know what the thumping or the screaming or laughing was?
I wasn't sure, no.
After the thumping and the noises that you heard upstairs, did anyone come downstairs?
Yes,
At some point, did the defendant come downstairs?
yes.
What happened once he came downstairs?
He and I left the studio.
Where did you go?
We went to the trunk to pick up Summer.
Who was Summer?
At the time, his living girlfriend.
How did you get to the trunk? You're referring to the defendant's apartment.
Yes,
How did you get to the trunk?
the Sprinter.
What, if any, conversations did you have with the defendant on the way to his apartment to the trunk?
He told me that he had to get on the girls.
What, if anything, did he say about that?
He said he had to get on the girls, and I asked him why. He said because of how they reacted at the party.
What, if anything, else did the defendant say?
He told Juice's mother not to come up the stairs. Juice's mother.
When you say, you testified earlier that the defendant went over to Juice's mother and told her something, but you didn't hear it at the time.
No.
Did he then later explain to you what he said to Juice's mother?
Yes.
And I believe you just testified that he said to Juice's mother not to go upstairs, correct?
Yes.
What, if anything, else did the defendant tell you about what happened upstairs?
He told me that because of how they were acting at the party, he actually had them to get on each other.
What do you mean by that?
I think they were fighting. Objection.
Overruled. When you say he had to get when you say he had to get wait a minute. When you say he told them to get on each other, what do you mean by that?
I believe fighting.
Next question.
At whose direction?
His direction.
The defendant's?
Yes.
And when you say that the defendant told you about getting on them, about the fact of what they were doing at the party, what, if anything, did the defendant tell you was his problem with what was going on at the party?
He didn't like an incident where they were twerking for cake. He didn't like that.
They were doing what? I didn't hear.
Twerking, which is dancing for cake.
What, if anything else, did the defendant say about dancing with respect to others who were at the party?
He said that he told her that she could only invite females.
Who is her?
Juice.
Had Juice only invited females?
Yes.
What was the defendant's problem? What did he say?
Objection.
The objection is overruled. I think she's just asking for the witness to describe what the defendant said.
That's correct.
What did he say?
Well, what I said was there were only females.
What, if anything, did the defendant say to you?
He said no, there was a dude there.
And based on your observation, was there, when he said a dude, was there a dude there?
No.
Who was he referring to then?
Her cousin.
Whose cousin?
Juice's cousin.
What was the defendant's problem with respect to Juice's cousin?
Objection. Same objection.
What did he say? What did he say after that about Juice's cousin?
That she leaned more to the masculine side.
What did the defendant say about what had happened at the party that caused him to be upset?
Well, he didn't like the fact that Juice was dancing on her cousin's lap. He didn't like the fact of how Dominique was carrying on with Juice's cousin.
I want to direct your attention to the New Year's Eve of 2015. So December 31st, 2015, do you recall where you were December 31st, 2015?
Yes.
Where were you?
Detroit.
Where were you in Detroit?
A show.
Whose show?
Rob's.
Was Jane present for this show?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to an incident in the Sprinter with Jane. Do you recall an incident happening with Jane inside of the Sprinter?
Yes.
What happened?
She was in the back. We were in the back of the Sprinter. She was asleep. Well, I assume she was asleep. And Van, which is another employee, he called me and asked if I had a charger cord. I said yes.
What did you do?
He asked me if I could pass it through to him, through the partition.
So we're clear. So we understand. You're in the Sprinter at the time.
Yes.
Where's the van?
Van is up front in the driver's seat.
You mentioned a partition.
Yes.
Where's the partition?
The partition was right behind me, which separates the driver from the back of the Sprinter, the seating area in the back of the Sprinter.
So you and Jane were in the back of the Sprinter.
Yes.
Did you open the partition?
I cracked it, yes.
What happened after you cracked the partition?
I cracked the partition to hand him the charger cord, and she jumped up. Jane jumped up, and she asked me, "Did you just open that partition?" I said, "I cracked it."
What was Jane's demeanor when you asked if you had opened the partition?
She was upset about it
Why was she upset about it?
because I cracked it, and she said that I was not supposed to.
Based on your observations and your work with the defendant, why was Jane not supposed? Why were you not supposed to open the partition?
Objection.
Overruled.
You can answer.
She said that he didn't want, I wasn't supposed to because Rob wouldn't want me to open the petition.
If you opened the partition from where Jane was, could you see into where Van was sitting?
No,
Van is in the front, right, of the Sprinter.
yes.
And I'm not asking whether or not it came down enough to see Van. I'm just asking if the partition came down, would Van be on the other side of the partition?
Yes.
To be clear, is Van a man or a woman?
Man.
Also, directing your attention to the trip in Detroit, what, if anything, unusual did you learn with respect to Jane during that trip?
Objection.
Overruled.
Referring back to my text message, she says she hasn't eaten.
For how long?
I think about 2 days.
At whose direction has she not eaten?
She didn't say whose direction she hadn't eaten.
Where was Jane at that time?
On the Sprinter.
How long had Jane been on the Sprinter?
Maybe, definitely on and off, maybe a couple of days.
If I could show the witness what is marked for identification purposes as 240D. Do you
Okay.
see that there?
I see it, but I can't read it. I'm going to object to this.
It's not offered yet.
But
Let's her ask the question, then we'll see what happens. Let me see counsel at the side.
continue my objection.
Can I read it? The text says, niece hasn't eaten since Thursday. We sat at Red Robin's for hours. He didn't feed her. SMDH. I just gave her some chips, queso, cold queso. Did you read that article? I believe every word. And then that must be the cousin, the twin, right? Then this witness wrote, has or has not.
The question from her sister has or has not correcting the earlier text.
Right. But this is the witness saying has or has not, right?
This is her asking has or has not. Then she says has not.
Your position is this whole thing is not admissible. Why are you objecting?
The witness never expressed that she's having a problem with recollection. She gave this witness in the middle of her testimony. The witness, she's been testifying, responding to the questions that's being posed, never indicated that she has a faulty recollection. So there is no basis to show her this.
The objection is overruled. What do you plan to ask her about?
Whether or not, based on her observations, if she knew why she hadn't eaten in 3 days.
I think it's sufficient to say she hadn't eaten. I don't think you have to say why. Next question.
Do you recall an incident in which one of the defendant's girlfriends, I'm showing government exhibit 76.
That can go to everybody, right?
That's correct. Do you recall an incident in which the individual in government's exhibit 76 spoke to you about her relationship with the defendant?
Yes.
Do you recall what happened? Let me ask you this. Where were you when the conversation took place?
The conversation that you're referring to.
With the individual in 76. I just want to know where you where?
The studio.
And what had you been doing just prior to the conversation?
I was asleep.
And did the individual in government's exhibit 76 come into the room?
Yes.
And how did she look? What was her demeanor?
She ran in crying. I'm sorry.
The individual in government's exhibit 76, how did she look?
She was crying.
And was visibly upset?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the individual in government's exhibit 76 say to you?
Well, she woke me up crying, saying, twin, he hit me.
And who was she referring to?
And I jumped up and I asked her, who hit you? She said, Rob, he hit me.
And what, if anything else, did she talk to you about where he hit her?
Yeah. So at the time that she was saying, twin, he hit me, she was turned with her back to me, and she pulled her shorts down and said that he had spanked her.
Did she talk to you about him having hit her anywhere else?
Well, she said he slapped her.
And when I'm sorry, you said she pulled down her shorts?
Yes.
And what was she showing you when she pulled down her shorts?
That her butt was bruised.
Did she say why the defendant hit her?
She said that he took her phone, he went through her cell phone, and that he spanked her and he slapped her. Nothing further from the government.
Okay.
Do you want to take the break
Mr.
now,
Candy,
or
do you want to take the break now? Or
it's up to you, Your Honor?
it's 10 minutes before the break. I don't know how much cross.
We can take the break now.
I think what we'll do now is break for our morning break for 10 minutes or so. Please don't talk about the case, and I will see you after the break.
All rise.
All rise.
All right, the witness can step out. We'll see you after the break. Anything before we break?
No, not from us, Your Honor.
Shahada?
Court. You can say it. Go say it. You say it.
Your Honor, if we address, Your Honor, if we can't address the motion that, wait a minute. Let me make this bigger, sorry. Your Honor, if we can address the motion that just because I think the witness is going to be coming up shortly.
Is it a sealed motion?
Yes.
So why don't we do it at the side?
Roll up, roll up, roll. Dang, roll up, roll up.
Roll up. Ooh, okay.
Damn.
So a lot of discussion after. Okay.
Okay.
Roll up.
2067, I think.
Yeah. All rise.
Everybody can sit down. All right, let's get the witness. And let's get the jury.
All rise. You may be seated.
All right, we are ready to resume with the cross-examination of the witness. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. Court deputy.
The witness is reminded she is still under oath.
Yes.
Go ahead, Traveler.
Can it?
Go ahead and do them. And I'll still stay Mayweather.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have to speak a little louder than that for us, please.
Good morning.
Thank you. And I don't want to be candid.
Okay. You want to go be Mayweather then?
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, you testified and told us before we took the break that there was an incident with you and one of Mr. Kelly's friends at the truck stop. And Mr. Kelly became, according to you, angry about your taking her off the vehicle. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Okay. And who was the young lady?
Joycelyn.
Okay. Now, you were the assistant to the young ladies. Am I correct?
No.
You were not the assistant?
To the young ladies? Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, not the young ladies. I was Mr. Kelly's assistant.
Well, I thought you testified and told us earlier this morning that your part of your responsibilities were to be the assistant of Mr. Kelly and his girlfriends. You didn't tell us that this morning?
I do not recall saying that I was assistant to the young ladies. No. But if Mr. Kelly needed something done with the young lady, he would ask and I would do it.
All right. And when you were at the truck stop, were you on the Sprinter or the tour bus?
I was on the Sprinter.
And who else was on the Sprinter?
I recall just me and Joycelyn and Van, the driver.
And it was not your role at that time to be the assistant of Joycelyn.
No.
Okay. What were you supposed to be doing on the Sprinter with Joycelyn?
I rode on the Sprinter that the vehicle I rode on. That's the vehicle I rode on.
So you had no other responsibilities other than just getting a ride on the Sprinter?
Yeah. I rode on the Sprinter while we were on tour. I rarely rode on the tour bus.
Right. You go.
Now, wait a minute, which one?
16.
I rode on the Sprinter. Joycelyn ended up on the Sprinter with me. And because she wasn't put on the tour bus.
Okay. Now, on the tour, on the Sprinter, there was no security. Am I correct?
No.
Now, when you would were there times that Mr. Kelly would ask you to get food for the young ladies?
Yes.
And were there times that the young ladies would ask you to get food for them?
Yes.
Now, you would go and get the food and bring it back. Am I correct?
Yes.
In this situation, you basically took Joycelyn off the Sprinter with you.
Yes.
And you went into a truck stop.
Yes.
Now, in this truck stop is where the truckers will go and freshen up and get their food and refreshments.
Well,
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer. Do you know what kind of place it was?
well, I said truck stop, but it was also a gas station
Right,
where there were restrooms and food.
right.
Vendors, yes.
Okay. And when you would travel, you said you would often travel in the Sprinter. The driver generally stopped at truck stops.
We stopped at stops that were conducted to the tour bus.
Okay,
Yes,
right. And those generally, that would then be a truck stop or a Walmart or something like that. Am I correct?
it could be a Walmart. Yes, because we've stopped at Walmarts before.
Now, you testified that there was, after you had made the stop, that Mr. Kelly was upset. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes,
And what was that exchange between you and he again?
the exchange was when I came back on the Sprinter. He called me and asked me. He asked me, did I take her off the Sprinter, and why did I take her off the Sprinter?
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
and not to take, and I did. I told him why, and he told me not to take the guest off the Sprinter without his permission.
Okay. And he didn't give you his explanation as to why.
I do not recall.
Okay. Now, was that one of the occasions that you had to write a letter?
No,
And was that an occasion that where you were fined?
no,
Now, so basically, he called you and told you to do it again, and that was the end of it.
yes, yes, yes. Can you guys hear me?
1 second. She just.
She lost it. She's out.
Just 1 second. What page are we on? I just got back on.
I'm sorry, guys. I stutter a little bit. Yes.
She's back.
Okay, number 11. Yes.
She's still having difficulties.
Is she in?
Yeah, she's in, but she's having difficulties. Just 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Guys, just be patient, a little patient. She's having some difficulty with her computer. What page are we on?
We on 2072, line 12.
2072. Okay, thank you.
I gotta run to the restroom.
This will just be a short intermission.
Spitting fire. I thought you was coming in to read for me. So who's playing Canic now?
She not back yet?
No, she's still having a problem.
Oh, okay.
Hey, spitting fire.
What's going on?
Let's spit and do it.
I sent you a message and you never replied to
I
me.
just woke up. 30
Oh,
minutes ago.
because I wanted you to play
I,
Canic for me.
I slept 15 hours.
Oh wow.
Okay, so where we at? Where we at?
2072 Canic.
2072. Hold on, let me pull it
Yeah,
up.
I'm
Did you
trying to wait
send it
for
to
what's name to come back. Yeah, I send you everything, ma'am. Let me send it to you again.
Hold on, I gotta look it up. Yeah, because I ain't been
Hold
on
on.
I ain't been on in a minute.
Hold on, let me get it to you. 1 second, 1 second.
I'm still looking too.
Just a second, 1 second.
It's 8:31. Fire.
Hold on a second. I'm trying to get her thing. 1 second. Do you have it?
Let's see.
Do you have it, Spitfire?
Not yet. Hold on. Okay, I got the StreamYard.
No, the 831.
They ain't come through yet.
Hold on a second. Maybe do it.
Y'all say what number is on page?
You got it already?
I pulled up something. What page is on?
2072. We're at 2072, line 12.
I got both of them to you.
Oh, you got both of them to me? Hold on.
I just sent it to you.
Okay. 2072.
Ouch.
I apologize, y'all. My phone just went out. I couldn't touch anything, so I had to restart it and come back in.
Okay, I got 40. I got the motion.
I just sent it to you. Look at your email.
I know I'm in an email.
Just now?
I'm in the email. Yeah, it say motion. 83120.
But that's the one we reading, 8:31.
Redacted something.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see.
No, that's the wrong one. Sorry.
Okay,
My
I was gonna
bad. My
say.
bad. Hold on a second. That's the 831 and 2020.
That's what
My
I
bad.
just said. 83120.
My bad. My bad. Hold on. I sent you the wrong one. Oh my God.
Do y'all want to continue until she get it?
Oh, but that is the one. That's the
Well, put it
one.
back on the screen. Put it back on the screen.
Hold on.
Because you never sent me 2072. I think I got up to 17, 18, something like that.
Yes, I did. I sent you all of them. You just gotta go look at your stuff.
I did look at my stuff,
No,
Miss
you didn't.
Lady, and you didn't.
Yes, I did. Stop. Don't laugh at her.
Little kid, no, you did. I didn't. You did.
She's starting trouble with me. There she go. There she go. Right there. Here we go. No title. I'm just gonna send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Right there.
Send it to the right person.
Did she just say send it to the right person?
Please do. Send it to the
Happy birthday. Stay safe.
Happy birthday.
Oh, y'all. Somebody big mad over there.
What happened
Oh,
now?
I gotta tell y'all when we finish Suzette's interview.
What happened now? Good God Almighty.
You all right over there? You all right
Yeah.
over there, travel the world?
Yeah.
You sure?
Okay.
I'm pissative. I'm pissative.
You pitative? Don't be pitative.
You say 2072?
Yes, ma'am. You got it now?
I'm getting there. Hold on. Okay, I gotta go. I went up too far. What line?
12.
12.
Is it line 12, y'all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no,
Okay.
she just went out for a second. She coming right back. She said she had to come back because she don't want the thing to run out.
Okay, so who am I?
You a canic.
Okay.
That's what I sent you a
I'm
message
panic,
about.
don't panic. Okay.
Yeah, I send you that message when you was sleeping.
Well, look, I gotta get my beauty sleep. Don't get mad at me because I get my beauty rest.
But thank you for coming in. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
So can it 12, okay, and read the rest?
No,
Okay.
huh?
Y'all ready?
Hold on, she ain't come back yet.
Okay,
I
let
was
me go give
reading
me
the
something.
next part.
No, Spitting Fire's Canic. You the other guy, Davies, remember? And the clerk. Why you always trying to take people part?
I'm not.
Uh,
I'm not. Cause
You take what's the name until she comes back, so we don't hold people on so long. She said she was coming right back in. Nikki's so quiet over there.
okay. You tell me?
Let me
Did you
hear.
tell?
I was on mute.
Did you tell me to do it till she come back?
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
okay.
All right,
Now,
speak.
okay, I'm on line 12.
Yes,
Let
ma'am.
me begin. Okay, now there was a situation where you told us that you were fined $500. What was that about?
That incident let me think which incident it was, because I honestly can't remember which incident with regards to it. So I had the incident with Jane, I had the incident with Joycelyn, and the incident with Dominique. It was one of those, I know. It was probably the incident with Jane. I really honestly don't remember which incident I was fined.
So you just testified a short while ago. You were specific about the incident.
Objection.
Overruled. You can just put the question to her.
You testified about it a short while ago and were specified about the incident. As you sit here now, you don't have a recollection?
Well, the incident that I was fined, it could have been the incident with Joycelyn, because I was definitely fine for the incident with Jane verbally, but I was not actually fine because the accountant did not fine me.
Now, you testified that after one of those incidents, you had to write a letter of apology. Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes,
What incident was that?
I wrote the letter with Dominique, the Dominique incident, and I wrote the letter with the Jane incident, and I wrote the letter with when I called him a liar.
And going back to the Dominique incident, basically, you lied to Mr. Kelly. Am I correct?
I did.
Okay. And you wrote a letter to apologize that you lied to him. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there was a situation where well, let me go back. When you wrote the letter of apology, he didn't tell you what to write. Am I correct?
No, he never told me what to write.
Never told you what to write.
No, I wrote the letter around the incident, whatever the incident was.
Thank you. And you testified about the situation where Mr. Kelly asked you to write or told you never to have a conversations about him with his girlfriends. Do you remember him telling you that?
Yes.
Now, that was not your job, was it?
To have a conversation about him? No.
And so after he told you to not have conversations about him with his girlfriends, you said you saw or received something that came from social media and passed it on to someone else. Am I correct?
I saw something. Yes. Yes.
And you sent it to someone. Am I correct?
Yes.
Who was it that you sent it to?
Juice's mother.
That wasn't part of your job either, was it?
No.
And he told you not to do that. Am I correct?
Well, that incident was before he and I had that conversation.
Right. And that text that was sent
That's
to
me.
Juice's
That's
mother.
me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And that text that was sent to Juice's mother, was this not intended for Juice's mother? Her name was right below, or above that. Wait a minute, above that person, and they had the same name, and I intended to send a message to. So the message was actually sent in error.
So the bottom line is that you were passing along gossip or something that you saw on social media about Mr. Kelly, and he didn't like it.
Correct.
And he asked you not to do it.
Correct.
Now, I want to go back to you testified and told us about the occasion that you took Jane to her graduation.
Yes, graduation rehearsal.
Did you tell us that you drove her?
I did.
Now, isn't it a fact that you didn't drive her?
No, I drove her.
Isn't it a fact that Mr. Kelly asked you to drive her and told Mr. Kelly that you didn't have identification to rent a vehicle and basically were taken on the Sprinter?
So yes, he did ask me about my identification because he wanted me to rent a vehicle to take her. And I told him that I didn't have my identification with me.
Right.
And so it was later resolved that we would take the security truck, which is an SUV. I think a Suburban. So we took that to Jacksonville. So I drove her in the security van to Jacksonville.
You drove her in the security van.
Yes.
And you drove her in the security van, basically took her to her family, right?
I did.
And she and her family had dinner.
They did.
And you had dinner with the family.
I did not.
But you connected her with her family.
I did.
And she had dinner. How long did she stay with her family?
I would say maybe 3-4 hours.
So from 3 or 4 hours, you weren't with them, right?
I was not.
Okay. This was in 2016.
Correct.
May 2016?
Correct.
Okay. And then there came a point in time that she connected with you and went back on tour.
Yes. She came back with me to Jacksonville for Mr. Kelly's show that night.
Now, by the way, when you first met Jane, she told you she was a college graduate. I mean, a college freshman. Am I correct?
Correct.
She said nothing about the fact that she was still in high school.
No, she did not.
And when was it that you met Jane? Do you recall?
Yes. September 2015.
And that September of 2015, she told you, September 2015, she told you that she was a college freshman.
She did. She told me she was 18 years old and a freshman in college.
Now, I want to go back to the incident that you spoke about. I think you testified as told us that you and Mr. Kelly and Jane were in Las Vegas.
We were.
And you testified and told us that you were sitting around and eventually Mr. Kelly asked Jane about her practice.
Yes.
And you testified that said that Jane told her that she had in fact been practicing, but in fact that was a lie.
Yes.
And you testified that there were further exchanges between them, and then you excused yourself.
Yes.
Now, this was at a studio.
Yes.
And he had been in the studio rehearsing for a while, am I correct?
He was in the studio, I believe, like playing tracks. Yes.
And then where did you go when you excused yourself?
I went out of the room and I was escorted to the restroom because I didn't know where the restroom was.
So you went to the facility that you weren't familiar with, and basically you were escorted by someone to the restroom because you knew something about the building.
Correct.
Okay, did you know was it that escorted you? Who was it that escorted you?
I believe it may have been Donnie that directed me to the restroom.
Okay. And now, so you went to the restroom and then eventually came back out.
I did.
Now, this studio, those rooms were pretty much soundproof, weren't they? Not?
Yeah, inside the studio, yes.
And then you left Mr. Kelly and Jane. What room were they in?
They were in, this was like a lounging area. It wasn't like a recording room. It was a lounging area.
Right. But do you know whether or not that rooms they left in had been soundproof?
It wasn't soundproof.
You know that for a fact?
I do.
Okay.
I know that for a fact.
Okay. Now, and you testified that there came a point in time that you heard Mr. Kelly fussing.
He was.
And when you say fussing, you're saying that you would be fair to say you heard what was him complaining about her. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. And when you say fussing, were you saying that it would be fair to say you heard what he was complaining about to her, not practicing and not yelling and not telling him the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And you heard that through the wall?
I could hear it through the door. Yes.
Through the door.
Yes.
And who else was there with you at the time?
No one.
And after that, you testified and said that you heard what sounded to be like a hit.
Yes.
Okay, but you didn't see a hit. Am I correct?
I did not.
In fact, you never seen Mr. Kelly hit anyone.
I have not.
Now, how long did you work with him?
From October 2015 until early February 2017.
So basically, you heard something to you that sounded like a hit, and you assumed it was a hit. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now, you testified about a situation where you said that you believe Mr. Kelly had the girls fighting each other. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Where were you when that was actually going on?
I was in the studio downstairs. They were upstairs. I was downstairs in the VIP section.
Was the studio soundproofed?
No.
And where were they?
They were upstairs right over my head.
Right over your head. And you said you heard this noise, and when you assumed that or believed that they were fighting.
I wasn't sure if they were fighting or if they were laughing and playing. It was like laugh. It sounded like laugh, screaming, thumping, bumping.
Okay. And then you made an assumption that it was a fight.
I didn't. I don't believe I made an assumption. I believe once he and I had a conversation is when it was confirmed.
And what did he say to confirm that it was a fight?
He told me that he had the girls to get on each other because of how they acted at the party.
To get on each other.
Yes.
And to get on each other means that there was a fight, a fist fight?
I can't honestly remember verbatim what he said, but that's what I got out of it.
That's what you took from it.
Yes.
Now, you testified that the reason why is because the girls were twerking.
He didn't like how they were acting at the party. One of the instances were, yes, when they were twerking.
And twerking is a vulgar dance?
Objection.
Twerking is what?
A vulgar dance.
Sustained.
What kind of dance is twerking?
It's when they're shaking their butts, turn around, shaking their butts. Yeah, that's the best description.
You heard of dropping. You ever heard of dropping?
Of what?
Dropping low. That's all right. I'll withdraw that.
What did he say?
I'm sorry.
I think dropping love.
Oh, I heard of that.
Now,
Sorry.
I want to go back to your testimony. I think you testified yesterday you meant the name Janky yesterday.
What was that name, please?
Janky?
Yes.
Now, Janky worked for Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
And Janky and a friend of yours, and you assisted, eventually started dating each other.
Yes.
And your friend's last name is McBride?
No.
What's her last name?
Archer?
Who?
Archer.
Archer. Was your friends with you one time at the party that Mr. Kelly gave?
Yes.
And they asked for identification, am I correct?
When we did go to the party, we did have to show identification, yes.
Right. And you and your sister and her?
Yes.
And you also you signed a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
I did not recall signing a non-disclosure agreement.
Do you remember your friend signing a non-disclosure agreement?
I honestly do not remember that.
And do you remember an occasion where your friends was taking pictures and got camera taken away from her?
No, my cousin.
Your cousin, okay.
My cousin, which her last name is McBride.
Okay, so McBride is your cousin.
Yes, and Archer was with us as well.
Okay.
Yes.
And McBride was at the same party?
Yes.
Okay, and she had to give her identification as well. Am I correct?
Yes.
And she signed a non-disclosure agreement.
I do not recall any of us signing non-disclosure agreements.
Okay, and McBride saw some celebrities and started taking pictures.
No.
No?
No.
Who was she taking pictures of?
She was taking, she was, this is once we got off because we were bused over from the hotel.
Right.
So once we got off the bus, as we were walking toward the house, there was a big banner of an album cover on the outside of his house.
Right.
So she took out her phone and snapped a picture of the banner.
And security took her phone?
They didn't take her phone. They approached her and asked her about it, but they did not confiscate her phone.
They didn't physically grab the phone.
No, I don't recall making. I don't recall them taking her phone, but I do recall them questioning her whether or not she took a picture, and I believe he questioned her to see her phone, but I don't recall him physically taking her phone. But I do believe he did allow him to see her phone.
Okay. Now, you testified and told us a short while ago that when you went to the graduation, you said you and someone else were in an SUV, security vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it a fact? Well, do you recall telling the government that you went by yourself?
No, I did not.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I asked you to read this sentence where my thumb is to yourself and to see if it refreshes your recollection that you told the government that you went by yourself. Liar. No, I'm just
Can you tell me what you're showing her?
Yes.
You read it?
I did.
Does that refresh your recollection that you told the government that you went by yourself?
Okay. So that incident, that had nothing to do with the graduation.
There was another time you took Jane to her parents?
No. So what I just read when I was in the Sprinter by myself.
Oh, you were saying that this had nothing to do with the
No.
graduation.
No, it did not. It's I'm sorry.
Let me please ask the question. What did this have to do with?
Okay. Some time frame, but that particular situation is on. I'm on the Sprinter by myself from Chicago to Florida.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, isn't it a fact, ma'am, that when you met with the government about the incident, you told them, SM7, that you told the government that they were on tour in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, when Kelly told you to take Jane to meet her parents and attended Jane's graduation rehearsal? Kelly wanted you to rent a car and to drive to Orlando, but you said you didn't have identification and therefore could not rent a car. You traveled to Florida by yourself on a Sprinter because you told Kelly that you had to take care of some business for him. Kelly said, okay. Oh, okay. And let you travel by yourself. You explained that you lied to Mr. Kelly because you had your identification and just didn't want to drive Jane anywhere.
Objection as to form.
Overruled. I think you just wanted to point her to that last part. Am I right?
Yes.
Next time, let's just do that.
So I'm sorry. What is the question?
The question is, isn't it what I just read to you that you actually told the government when you met with them, and specifically you didn't want to? You lied to Mr. Kelly because you didn't want to drive Jane anywhere.
That is true.
Okay. Now I want to show you a document and see if this refreshes your recollection as to whether or not security made your cousin McBride sign a non-disclosure agreement and wanted to take her phone. The top highlighted portion in pink.
Mr. Cannon, can I see what you're showing her?
6 of 15, if that helps.
It does not.
SM7. Does that refresh your recollection that she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement?
If I said that, then yes, she would have been, she would have, but honestly, I do not recall an NDA, and they did not take her phone.
Yeah.
I saw that in there, yes.
Now, they asked about her taking the pictures and spoke to her about whether or not she had.
Yes.
Now, I was asking you about Janky. Janky was an employee of Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And he eventually passed.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly wrote a song dedicated to be played at his funeral.
I hear back play.
Yes. And eventually there was a memorial.
Before the funeral, yes.
And at the memorial, Mr. Kelly spoke and was extremely emotional.
Objection.
I do not see the relevance in this at all. Sustained.
They raised it, Your Honor.
They raised it?
Yes.
I don't recall that at all. The objection is sustained.
Now, there came a point in time that your sister was hired by Mr. Kelly as well.
Yes.
At the time that he hired her, she was primarily to be a chaperone for Summer.
No, not a chaperone. What she was to be his assistant and assist Summer if she needed to go. At the time, Summer was pregnant.
Right.
And so he wanted, her to be there if Summer needed to go to the doctor appointment. Maybe go with her to the doctor's appointment or, run errands for her if Summer needed it.
Right. To assist Summer, am I correct?
Yes.
And Summer was his primary girlfriend.
Yes.
And
Judge, one of the jurors has their hand up.
Can I talk to Donna?
We're just going to take a 5-minute break. Please don't talk about the case. Well, truthfully, it will probably be more than 5 minutes, so probably 10 minutes. Don't talk about the case. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All rise.
Okay, everybody can have a seat. Let's take the witness out. Mr. Canick, what do you think?
Less than 30.
Okay. All right.
It could be less than 15.
All right. Okay. So we'll be in recess just for a few minutes.
Definitely finished before lunch.
That's good news.
All rise. You may be seated.
Okay. We are ready to continue. Go ahead, Mr. Canick.
Your Honor, may I have the last question and answers read back?
Sure.
And whose computer is doing that? Because everybody mute, please.
That's
Oh,
mine.
different. Oh, different reporter.
The Facebook keep popping up. What can I do about it? I can't do anything about that.
Okay, Lou, you probably need to let Nikki read then, or Faith. Faith, can you read?
Oh, she just gonna steal my part from me. All
No,
right.
I'm not stealing. You making noise. You say you can't help that.
Well, if anybody, go ahead. Go ahead. I ain't gonna fuss about it. Go ahead.
What part?
Sure. Oh, different reporter.
Could you give her the page and which part she's up to?
Oh, okay. We're at 2092 and we're on line number 11.
Okay, who do you want me to take over?
You're gonna be the
The
witness.
witness.
The answer part.
Okay.
Go ahead, Canick and clerk.
Okay.
The court.
Okay.
This is the
The
court.
court.
Sure. Oh, different reporter.
Oh, different reporter?
The last thing you asked was whether Summer was the defendant's primary girlfriend.
Thank you. So, Summer was Mr. Kelly's primary girlfriend at that point. Am I correct?
Yes.
And she was pregnant?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly's wanted someone to be there.
The jurors cannot hear you. I think your microphone is off.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Thank you. May I have those read back? The record was read. Okay. Mr. Kelly wanted someone to be with her to assist her in going to medical appointments and take care of other requests that she may have.
Yes. Not necessarily in the house with her, but if she needed something, yes.
Right. And that was partly your sister's responsibility.
It would have been, yes.
Okay. But what's about yours?
He didn't say. So he didn't say that it would be my responsibility.
Okay, now that Mr. Kelly hired an assistant to pretty much take care of the needs of his girlfriends, am I correct?
So as far as Summer, there were two young ladies that were there to assist Summer. And so with Mr. Kelly, he had, his own assistant. But those two young ladies were no longer there.
But he did have assistants for his girlfriends.
Not the girlfriends, no. The assistant, and I will refer to myself, I was specifically hired for Mr. Kelly, not his girlfriends.
Not his girlfriends?
Yes.
Okay. And there were runners.
No, there were no runners.
There were no runners.
No.
Again, you worked for him between when? What years?
2015 to 2017.
And there were no runners?
In terms of title, no. There were not runners. If there was an errand that needed to be, taken care of, that could have been any one of us. But there were not specifically runners, no.
And are you aware that some of the girlfriends had Uber accounts?
No.
Are you aware that some of the girlfriends had also transportation accounts?
No.
Now, I want to go back to the baby that was being expected by Summer. that was Summer and Mr. Kelly's child, right?
Yes.
Now, going back to you're being on the tour bus. Describe the tour bus for us.
So the tour bus has or had two long seats right across from one another, and then
Oh, I'm sorry. And would those long seats be, would they be in mid coach, back coach?
front coach. So when you walk in the tour bus, first there was a driver, and then there was a curtain. So right behind the curtain, front coach, there are two long couches that are across from one another.
Okay.
Okay. And then there was a table at the end of one of them. And then there's, I think there was like maybe a sink area. And then mid coach, there was a restroom. There was a restroom. And then past the restroom were bunk beds.
Okay.
Yes. And then past the bunk beds, like the master bedroom.
Okay. Was there a refrigerator?
Yes.
A microwave station?
Yes.
And a table?
Yes.
Now, this was a super luxury coach. Am I correct?
Yes.
Something around 2 million, right?
I don't know.
But when you saw it, you knew that you knew that this was something that was lavish and expensive, right?
Yes.
Now, so when Mr. Kelly was on the bus, he had security with him.
On the bus? No.
He didn't have security on the bus?
Not on the bus. No.
Okay. The security would be traveling in another vehicle?
Yes.
Along with the coach?
Yes.
Okay. And when Mr. Kelly was in the bus and the bus stopped, the security would stop?
Yes.
And if Mr. Kelly exited the bus, the security would be there along with him?
Yes.
Okay. And when you and the young lady were on the bus, when you stopped that Mr. Kelly inquired about, there was no security anywhere. Am I correct?
Objection as to form.
Do you know?
Will you please rephrase, because I'm trying to make sure you're talking about the correct incident we're speaking of. Jocelyn?
Yes.
That incident. You're asking me if there was security?
Right.
Security was there. Yes.
Okay. And that's at the truck stop?
That's yes, where we stopped. Security is there.
Was security there that night?
Yes. We were over the road for a show, traveling over the road for a show. So the way we travel, the tour bus is always in the front. The Sprinter is in the middle, and security is behind the Sprinter in terms of traveling. Yes.
So it wasn't just the two of you in that bus.
When you say the two on the Sprinter,
Yes. Where were you and you took off the bus? Was it just the two of you?
yes, the two of us together. Yes. When I took her inside of the store, it was just she and I. Yes.
And is it a testimony that Mr. Kelly was someplace nearby with security?
Mr. Kelly was on the tour bus.
Right.
Yes.
And was there a tour bus stopped at the location as well?
Yes.
And security was there with Mr. Kelly?
Security, they were in their vehicles, or either they were out of their vehicles. I don't recall what the security guys were doing, but they were not with Mr. Kelly, because Mr. Kelly was on the tour bus. Mr. Kelly did not get off the tour bus.
But you and this young lady got off the Sprinter.
We got off the Sprinter. Yes.
And you went into the facility.
Yes.
And when you got a call at some point about Mr. Kelly trying to find out why.
I got a call from Mr. Kelly asking why did I take his guest off the Sprinter. Yes.
When was that? When did you get the call?
I think once we got back on the Sprinter.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you gave an explanation.
I did.
And what was your explanation?
That she needed to use the restroom.
And then he said, don't take any of his guests off the bus without him actually knowing about it, right?
Yes. Do not remove his guests from the Sprinter without asking him first. Yes. Without him knowing.
And you said that at that point, you didn't know where his security was. Am I correct?
Not the security, no.
And so you don't know if the security was any place to be there to assist if it needed. Am I correct?
To assist me and Jocelyn?
To assist anyone that was part of the tour.
They were there. I don't know who were there, who they were. I don't recall where they were parked. I don't recall if they got out of the security truck, but no, they were not there. I don't recall. I don't know where the guys were.
So basically, you don't know where if Mr. Kelly was basically forming his opinion or contacting you because his security was not there for you nor Jocelyn.
Objection.
Sustained.
You just testified and told us that you don't know where the security was. Am I correct?
No, I do not recall where they were.
And you don't know why Mr. Kelly contacted you other than tell you not to take his guests off the bus without contacting him first.
Objection.
Do you know what his reasons were?
No, I just know he didn't want his guests off the Sprinter. I didn't read anything after that.
Now, you testified and told us about a time where Jane was left. You and Jane were left behind because Jane had not completed some schoolwork. Remember telling us that?
Yes.
Now, the room that she was left in was called the theater room. Am I correct?
I didn't know the name for the room, but I would sit back there and I'd watch movies. Yeah. He had a couch, some chairs, and a big screen TV. Yes.
And the room basically had a kitchenette and a bathroom. Am I correct?
Did the room have a kitchenette?
Yes.
No, the room did not have a kitchenette. The studio had a full kitchen that was off from the room that was attached to another sitting room. But the room itself, no.
Isn't it a fact that you told the government that the room was like a theater room and it had a kitchen and a bathroom?
The room was, well, it's like, I mean, there's a big screen TV and there was a sitting area where we would watch movies because I've been there and I've been in there myself to watch movies. But the kitchen was off from the room and the bathroom was next to the kitchen.
My question is,
so it was in the same vicinity, yes.
my question is, isn't it a fact that you told the government that Jane would be in the room, in her room, which was like a theater room, and it had a kitchen and bathroom?
I do not recall wording it like that, but I will say that the room set off from the kitchen as well as the bathroom.
I'm going to show you this document and see if it refreshes your recollection that you told the government that the room was like a theater room and it had a kitchen and a bathroom.
What I will say, and I will continue to say, that room did not have, inside of that room was not a kitchen and there was not a bathroom. Right outside of that room was a full-size kitchen and a bathroom.
You read the document that I show you. You read the document that I show you.
I read the document. I don't know if there was a typo or an error, but that is not how I remember describing the room.
But you were the only person who was in the room giving the government this information at the time that you interviewed with them. Am I correct?
Yes.
And you did see that in the report. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now you testified about the situation you said concerning, I'm showing you that what has been marked or admitted into evidence as government 76. Do you remember telling us that one night you were awakened by this individual and the person came and explained that Mr. Kelly had hit her?
Yes.
This is something you didn't witness for yourself. Am I correct? Am I right?
No, I did not.
This is something that you told to you by someone.
Yes.
Do you remember when it was, year or date, that this was told to you?
It was in 2016. I do not remember the date, but it was in 2016.
Do you recall whether or not, well, withdrawn. This person was Mr. Kelly's primary girlfriend at the time, am I correct?
I would not say she was his primary girlfriend, no.
And that, according to you, this was in 2016.
It was in 2016, yes.
And this person live in the home with Mr. Kelly?
At the time, she would come and go.
She would come and go.
Yes, she would come and go.
And coming and going, she also had an apartment in Atlanta. Am I correct?
Yes.
And coming, wait a minute.
At the time, no.
No? Wait a minute. No at any point in time?
Yes. At some point, yes.
And that apartment was given to her by, well, at least being paid for by Mr. Kelly. Am I correct?
Yes.
And she would come and go as she pleased. Am I correct?
Objection.
Yes.
I'm sorry. The question was, she comes and goes as she pleases.
Yes.
Is that true?
Well, I know she would come and go, yes.
Okay. Now, were you and Mr. Kelly during the Christmas holiday?
Yes.
Did he celebrate?
Yes.
Was there a Christmas tree?
Yes. There was 2 Christmas trees year round.
2 Christmas trees year round.
Year round?
Year round? And they were decorated year round?
Yes.
And were you with him on any other holiday that other than Christmas?
Thanksgiving?
Did you celebrate?
Yes.
Turkey?
Yes.
And what about Easter?
Yes. During that time I was there. Yes, there were holidays. I don't recall really celebrating Easter, but I do recall Christmas and Thanksgiving. Yes.
New Year's?
Yes.
I'm almost there, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm done, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Any redirect?
Just briefly.
Okay.
Ms. Mayweather, do you recall on cross-examination the defense counsel's question regarding the conversation that the defendant had with you about your talking to Dominique?
Yes.
Do you remember defense counsel asking you about that?
Yes.
Now, you had testified that on that occasion, the defendant became upset about you talking with Dominique about their relationship, correct?
Yes.
And you also testified that you lied to protect Dominique, given the defendant's reaction, correct?
I did.
And
Yes.
after that, the defendant then asked you to write a letter that night, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you tell the defendant on that night that you had lied and taken the blame for Dominique?
No.
So, did he didn't know you lied, correct?
No.
So, when you wrote that letter, is it fair to say that you were writing the letter to apologize to talking with Dominique about her relationship with the defendant?
Yes.
Tori,
Defense
I'm
counsel,
hungry.
mute. Defense
Okay.
counsel also asked you questions on cross examination about originally when you learned about Jane's age and her being 18 in college. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you learn Jane's true age?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the defendant told you that she was 17?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that occurred shortly after that cross country trip in September and October of 2015, correct?
Yes.
Defense counsel also asked you some questions about the birthday gathering at the studio with respect to Juice. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And defense counsel also asked you about the defendant telling you that he was upset about that Juice and Dominique and some of the other girls were dancing. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Didn't the defendant also tell you that he was upset that they were dancing with Juice's cousin because Juice's cousin was like a dude?
Yes.
Defense counsel also asked you on cross examination some questions about the makeup of the tour bus and the sprinter. Do you recall those?
Yes.
Did the sprinter have a bathroom?
No.
Did it have a fridge?
Yes.
Did Jane spend time on the sprinter?
Yes.
Now, defense counsel also asked you about that back room where Jane would stay in 219 North Justine Street. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Any doubt in your mind as to whether that had a kitchenette or a bathroom in it?
No.
So there's no kitchenette or bathroom in that room.
No.
Defense counsel also asks you questions with respect to the individual in the government exhibit 78. I'm sorry, 76. If you could just publish for the jury and the public, do you recall the question?
Yes.
And when the individual in government exhibit 76 came to you, she was crying, right?
Yes.
And didn't she pull down her shorts and show you where the defendant had hit her?
Yes.
Defense counsel on cross examination also asked you about some statements in a report that he showed to you. Do you recall those questions? Defense counsel showed you a report and asked you some questions about statement that he had said that you had made in that report. Do you recall?
Yes.
Had you ever seen that report before?
No.
And after having I'm sorry. Was that the first time you have seen the report, correct?
Yes.
Did you have any opportunity to review that report and check for accuracy?
No.
Defense counsel also asked about New Year's Eve. Do you recall him asking you on cross examination about New Year's Eve?
Yes.
You previously testified that New Year's Eve, you were in Detroit and Jane was there, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that that trip for New Year's Eve, Jane hadn't eaten for 3 days? Objective. Oh,
Overruled. Do you know?
that you learned that Jane hadn't eaten for 3 days?
I was told that, yes.
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I would ask to have that stricken from the record.
I sustained it. I sustained it. Next question.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any recross?
Yes. You were just asked about the report that I showed you, whether or not you checked for accuracies. Remember being asked that question?
Yes.
Will you agree with me that I did not write that report right?
That who didn't?
I.
Objection.
Well, I think everybody agrees Mr. Canick did not write the report.
I think so. And somebody at this table wrote the report. Am I correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You gave the report to the government during the interview.
Gave the report?
Objection.
The statement.
Yes.
And you saw them writing and taking notes. Am I correct?
Writing? Yes.
And you were the person that was giving the information. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now you testified and told us that there was a point in time concerning something with Dominique, that you lied to Mr. Kelly to protect Dominique. Remember telling us that?
Yes.
Now you made an assumption that you needed to protect Dominique. Am I correct?
Yes.
And you said you made that assumption because something about Mr. Kelly's eyes caused you to make that assumption. Am I correct?
Yes.
He wasn't yelling or cursing, anything like that. It was his eyes that caused you to come to a conclusion, correct?
It was the fact he was upset and yeah, the look in his eyes. Yeah.
What time of the day was it?
It was about 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. Okay. Do you remember he had been sleeping?
No.
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you remember what he was doing prior to having the conversation with you?
Objection.
Overruled. Do you know?
No.
Although I didn't ask you anything about the sprinter, it was asked of you a short while ago about whether or not it had a bathroom and kitchen in it. Do you remember the government asking you that?
Yes.
That was a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. Am I correct?
Yes.
And it's a luxury Sprinter. Am I correct?
Yes.
It was a Sprinter that you testified about yesterday that had a luxury seat upholstery in the back. Am I correct?
Objection.
Yes.
Well, I do not really see the relevance, but go ahead. Overruled.
Now, you were asked questions about there being a bathroom, and there's no bathroom in it, right?
No.
And there's no kitchen, right?
No.
But it had all the other accoutrements. Am I correct?
Objection.
Overruled.
When you say that, will you be clearer with me, please?
Did it have luxury seating?
Yes.
Did it have media?
Yes.
What else did it have in it?
It had a fridge.
You skip one.
You skipped one.
I said your part. Pardon me.
Oh, it had a phone charger, phone. There was a phone in the back. It had a fridge. Okay, you on yes.
Okay. Yes.
Nothing further.
You do not have any redirect, do you?
No, Your Honor.
The witness can step down. And I'm going to excuse you for lunch now since it is almost 1. Please do not talk about the case. We will be back here at 2:15. Enjoy your lunch.
All rise.
Everybody can sit down. Who is our witness for this afternoon?
We have a very short witness next, Mr. Christopher Davies. Short, really short. After that, the witness we discuss at the sidebar.
Anything else before we break?
Not from the government.
Okay. Have a good lunch.
All right. All right, guys, this is it.
So we're at 21:15 tomorrow.
21:15 tomorrow. Good job, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you. You guys read really well. I appreciate you guys. That was awesome. Awesome.
So since you doing it tomorrow, somebody else is gonna have to be Davis if you don't do it in the evening because I work tomorrow. Thank you, Sylvia.
Okay, what is that noise? Who is that
What is
noise?
that?
That's Miss
Computer, something.
That's Miss Faith over there making noise.
I'm not doing anything.
It's not me.
It's Miss Faith. You see her thing jumping? Look.
But I usually get blamed for it.
I see her jumping. Look at her. Look. I'm muting her. I just muted her. Hey, Miss Getty. So tomorrow, what time, y'all?
Hi, everybody. Blessings, all.
Blessings. What time tomorrow, guys? What time is good for most people?
I get off. I sign off at 4:35. So
4:30. Okay.
Central Standard Time.
I'm off tomorrow, so anytime is.
So you good tomorrow? What about you, Faith? Because you talk. It's your time. You and Davies.
I'm off tomorrow too.
Faith, you off tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So we could do it earlier. I'm off tomorrow also. So we could do it about 4. When 4 is it 4 your time, Miss Judge?
4:35. I'm actually, I mean, I'll be text chatting, so I mean, I could. I mean, that's fine. It's 4 o'clock. That's fine.
Where you at, Miss Judge?
I'm in Tennessee. Central Standard Time.
Hey, I'm gonna have to mute you. You had a noise making on over there.
Sound like somebody printing or something.
It's her thing sound like. Nikki, what's your time tomorrow?
Tomorrow it would have to be after 6 for me.
6. What are you Eastern
I'm
Standard Time?
Central. I'm Central Time.
So that's 7. So I guess I gotta go back to my regular time, 7 o'clock then. Will you be off by then, Miss Davies?
Will we have updates though? I mean, will this be after the updates?
Yes, I'll be off.
But
there will not be an update because Dottie's flying and she's not going to be there at the time.
Okay.
But Miss Sylvia, I will text you early to let you know if I'm totally not available tomorrow because sometimes on Monday and Tuesday evenings I do have to. I have some other commitments, so I will text you. So don't hold it back for me. If everybody else is available before that, go ahead on, and I can just text you and let you know if I'm available to jump in and give somebody a break. Look, I can be a floater or something.
Okay, Davies. What time you get off?
I get off for work at 5:30 Pacific time.
5:30 Pacific. Oh my God, that's like 12 o'clock at night here.
No, it ain't.
Jesus, that's what 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 o'clock here.
Well, the 8 and 12 don't sound the same.
Okay, so tomorrow, y'all, she'll just jump in after a while when she get off. Are the prosecutor done? And the prosecutor has rested. The cross-examination of the last witness of the prosecutor is tomorrow for the defense. That's what's happening tomorrow. And then the defense starts their witnesses. Yay!
Yay!
Yay.
Right.
Yay! What day is the bombshell? I think tomorrow might be the bombshell. No, might be Tuesday. The bombshells, I think, might be Tuesday.
What bombshell?
Oh, it's a bombshell coming, y'all.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
It's a bombshell coming.
bombshell.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all, I'm a special witness.
You know,
Just keep it in the group. Just keep it in the group.
There's a bombshell coming. There's a bombshell coming. Just stay tuned. You think that the witness, the defense gonna just lay down, let it just happen like that? No.
okay, we're gonna keep it within the group. I don't know.
Could we do
don't
a
know.
morning read, Miss Sylvia?
You want to do a morning one?
Yeah, like at 10 or something, so we can kind of get caught up.
Yeah, we need to do so. Yeah, we need people who could read in the morning. Who could read in the morning?
Well, I mean, tomorrow on Monday, I'm going to be talking. I'm taking calls from 8 to 12. So that's what, 1 o'clock your time, 9 o'clock. So 9 to 1. I'll be actually on the phone. And then after that, I'll be text chatting. So, I mean, we could do it after that. That's fine.
Yeah, but we're trying to get caught up because what happened is, I already sent I did pay for the transcript today. Thank you everybody who made it happen for the $536.40 that we just stitched out to these people again for two days of transcript, which sucks. I don't understand why we pay so much money, but hey,
we are way behind. Way behind.
Yeah, we way behind the 9th and the 10th. Then this week, I submitted for the next set of transcript. That's going to be more money. But you know what? I don't know. Do y'all still want to get the transcript? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Because Robert needs to see this when he comes out. So he could sit down and watch everything that happened, how we played it out. Because he will be watching it eventually, y'all, when he
We're
gets
going to turn this into a trapped in a closet, trapped in jail saga.
He will be watching it. I promise you that. He's gonna watch it his downtime, and he's gonna see how you guys did for him. What you guys did.
Yay, Rob!
Right?
Y'all can say hi to him now. Hey, Rob.
Oh, Rob.
When you watch this,
Rob,
because he is gonna watch it.
Rob, just travel the world. I'm apply for a job, okay?
Oh Lord.
I'll be an assistant.
No, I don't think he want no more assistance with all this crap that been going on.
I got your best interest at heart.
Oh my God. Let's just pray, God, that the Lord bring the right employees in his life.
Yes,
right
Lord.
Yes. Surround him by the right people.
That's right. That's all we need to pray for. No
Righteous.
more of the riffraff like before.
Right.
Videos that.
Yep.
Let's see.
So
it was I don't know who channel this was, but they had Will on it.
Can we close this down because I don't want to mix up with other stuff. We'll close this down. We'll come right back so we can do a chit chat. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.